welcome. Just going to make sure that everything's good. Hopefully you can all hear me. I'm Amanda, also known as AmandaRachLee on YouTube and the internet. And welcome to VidCon now. I'm sure you guys have been joining a couple of the sessions here and there. But today, ours is kind of fun. We are doing some calligraphy and lettering. If you aren't familiar with my channel, I do a lot of journaling content, I do art content, stuff about productivity, and something that I personally love to do in my bullet journals and in my illustrations is lettering. And I'm sure you guys have seen lettering all around, and it's actually simpler than it looks. So we're gonna do a little bit of like a motivational quote today, and I'll take you guys through how I kind of formulate a quote that I typically do in my bullet journals, but it's also, you know, a little bit motivational, inspirational, and it's kind of fun. I like doing this type of stuff to relax as well and kind of give myself some time. It's almost like meditative in a way. This is kind of hands-on, so if you want to join, feel free to. All you're going to need is a piece of paper, which I have here. You can also do it like in your bullet journals or notebooks. I just wanted to have a wider space so that you guys can see everything. Also, a pencil and a pen of some sort. So you don't need any special type of calligraphy pen or anything like that. I'm going to show you guys how to do it all just with a pen, and it's going to be fun. So this is kind of like an interactive session. Even if you're not following along and doing it in front of me and yourself, feel free to ask questions, and I will try to answer as I'm taking you through. And yeah, I guess we can get started. We can cut to, I have a nice little overhead set up. Oh, there we go. Look at how nice this is. As I mentioned, if you guys have any questions or if I'm going too fast, feel free to ask away. I was trying to think of what's a good quote for us to write, and I saw this quote, and it said, "Learn to rest, not to quit," which I think is really good, really like a applicable quote to all things, whether you're, you know, on YouTube. I know things get a little hard with burnout sometimes, or if you're starting school. I just think there's been a lot of conversations about, you know, self-care and burnout, and I think it's a really nice quote. So when I'm coming up with like my lettering illustration, so if I just, you know, quickly write down my quote, learn to rest, not to quit. So when I'm like looking at the words here, oh, it's flipped. Sorry about that. Did not realize that it would be flipped. It's gonna be backwards, I guess now. I don't know if someone on the team can flip the camera because now all the words are gonna be backwards. But anyway, okay, I think we're good. Sorry about that. When I'm looking at the words, I want to focus on, you know, ones that are kind of impactful. So for me, that would be rest, learn, and quit. So for those words, I really want to make sure that I'm emphasizing those. So in terms of the lettering style, those are the ones that I would maybe want to do in a cursive or in a bolder font. So when I'm sketching out my design, I'm going to do learn in cursive, and then we can put to as just a regular word, and then rest will also be in cursive, and then now I can kind of fit the alignment, not to, and then quit. So it's kind of in like this nice block there, and I have my sketch now. So when I go in with my pen, what I'm gonna do is gonna pretty much do exactly that, and I'll teach you guys how to make it kind of fancy. So if I do learn, so we have learn right now, to rest. And with calligraphy and pretty much any, you know, form of art, it all takes practice. So of course, I've been doing lettering for a while now, so I kind of know what style I like, but it's really helpful to kind of look up different lettering illustrations, see what you like. So I'm going to do that right now. And once I have that, so you could definitely stop here, but what I think makes something look very impactful and also kind of gives more emphasis to the calligraphy is something called faux calligraphy. So typically with lettering, I'm going to show you guys an example. We would use a calligraphy brush pen like this, which gives you, kind of thinner upstrokes, bolder downstrokes, so you can kind of manipulate your brush pen like that. But when you only have a pen, which I wanted to show you guys how you can make something look really nice with only like a regular thickness pen, we can kind of mimic the way that a typical brush pen would look, and kind of cheat our way. I like to call it like faux calligraphy, faux cursive lettering. I don't know what it's called, but we're essentially trying to mimic this look of a thinner upstroke, which is when your pen goes upwards, and then a thicker downstroke. So if I am showing you guys just like a basic exercise here where we have a wave, on that downstroke when it's going downwards, what we're going to do is kind of make a double line downwards, and that way you can see we're mimicking that, and then you can go ahead and fill that in. So this is just an exercise, and we'll apply it to the letters that we have over here. So in terms of these letters, like I mentioned here, whenever there was a downstroke, so you can kind of retrace your steps. When I was going down here on the L, I am going to double that, fill it in. Same with this E, same with the A. So I'm kind of like going back over where I had written, and whenever my pen has to go down, that's when I'm thickening the strokes. And as you can see, it looks a lot nicer. It looks like you put a lot more effort, but as you guys can see, it was pretty easy to do. And this method can be used with all types of pens. So if you just have, regular pens, it's kind of an easy way to make your lettering look cute. I like to do this, if I'm taking notes or something, it's like a nice little header, but it doesn't take too long to do. So that was pretty quick to do, and as you can see, those words that we circled out are already kind of, they have more of an impact and they stand out, which is the words that we want the viewer to focus on. And you can definitely stop here. I feel like if this was on a nice little, planner page or bullet journal page, it looks very cute. I like to add what me and my viewers like to call little doodles everywhere around it to kind of take it to the next level. So if you want to jazz it up a little, you can add, stars around it. So if I want to add some stars here, you can kind of do that. And really kind of, these are doodles, so if you're not good at drawing, I don't think you need to, be the best artist in the world in order to draw like stars and stuff like that. I like to do this type of stuff mostly, not necessarily to create like a masterpiece, but again, it's more so just as a creative outlet and something that I can do when, I'm bored, or if I just want to have something that looks nice in my planner, because I like to have stuff like this in my planner in order to make my task list not as miserable to look at. So you can add some of these dots and stars around it, and we're already kind of, it already looks nicer than the initial like basic thing that we had before. If you do have other colors of markers on hand, something else that I like to do that we can, kind of jazz it up a little bit is add a drop shadow. So drop shadows are super easy to do as well. We can actually just kind of add a little bit of a emphasis to these words again. So in this case, we're going to go on the right side of whatever line stroke that we have here. So on this L here, there's, on the right side of the letter, we're going to go down. And this is also the right side of the letter. This is a little bit of a dark marker. I thought it was going to be lighter, but it still works. So we're just basically adding, kind of a colored shadow to the letters to make it pop out more. I can also, use a different color for rest here. I think this does look better with a lighter color because we have a black marker. So depending on like what your color palette is, we can kind of do that. And you don't need like these specific types of markers. Like I've used literally Crayola markers in order to do stuff like this before. So it's really, you can use what you have. I'm sure, Crayola markers are also pretty inexpensive, so you don't need like crazy art supplies. On my channel, we always try to encourage, art that is accessible. So yeah, this just adds like a nice little bit of shadow. You can add a shadow to that shadow as well and just kind of keep going at it if you want. And if you want to keep a consistent color palette, we can add more of the doodles around it with these colors just to kind of tie everything in. A lot of people on my channel ask me like how I make everything look consistent, and you do have to kind of keep in mind the design elements, so like color, contrast. So in this case, I would want to make sure that this purple color is kind of balanced along the composition, which is here. And now I can add some of the pink as well if I wanted to. And, kind of keep going. So I'm just gonna add a little bit more and then kind of finish off. I do want to leave some time for, audience questions. I know stuff like this can be a little bit overwhelming at first when you first start, but once you get the hang of it, it gets pretty fun. And I like to do this like mindlessly, especially if I'm like watching a TV show or something. It's just like fun to create something. So as you can see, if we remove our, I don't have an eraser on me, do I? But if we covered up here, this is our kind of like final super quick lettering illustration. It's like a motivational quote. It took us it took 15 minutes to make, and I didn't require any fancy markers or anything, just a regular thickness of like a pen or fine liner. And if you wanted to add other colors, you could. And there's so many ways that you can kind of jazz this up as well. If you wanted to, with our learn or the cursive with the faux calligraphy, something else that I've done is instead of coloring it in black like we've done here, when we went with the downstroke, you can actually like leave it hollow. So just like playing around with these different elements in lettering and doodles, it's really, really fun, and I encourage you guys to all, play around with it, try to find your own style of lettering, and yeah, I feel like these little motivational quotes are kind of fun to do. If there is audience questions, feel free to let me know. Otherwise, we could, Dave asks, okay, I have an audience question. I have terrible handwriting. I've always been nervous to try calligraphy. Do you think bad handwriting will impact my results? This is such a good question because I do get this quite a lot. And contrary to popular belief, I know it's hard to believe when you look at this, but I actually don't have the neatest handwriting, especially for me, like when I'm writing, regular blocks of text. My writing gets pretty messy when I'm like writing quickly, but to me, I think of calligraphy more so not as like handwriting. It's a bit more of an art form. So as you can see, when I was doing like the cursive, I was going very slow. And you can, again, as I mentioned, if you look up like lettering styles or lettering videos, trying to mimic like the types of letters that you enjoy. Like when I first started, I did, the alphabet as an exercise, and I tried out different styles for each letter to try to see what I like. And then when you put it all together, it comes together in a seamless way. But yeah, I would just go super slow. Try not to think of it as like handwriting, but you can, slow it down. The good thing about this is that, you're not racing against the clock, so you don't need to do it quickly. You can just go at your own pace, and again, if you make a mistake, you can always flip the page, start again. KPP asks, I'm a small business owner really interested in art and calligraphy. How can this be turned into a financial prospect for business? This is a really good question. If you guys didn't know, I'm not sure how many people here are familiar with my channel, but I started YouTube 9 years ago now, and now I have a stationery business as well where I sell like my journals, planners that have my illustrations in it. But even if you don't want to create like products, there are so many ways that you can actually, if you're interested in art and calligraphy, turn it into a business. And especially with the rise, I feel like everyone's all about supporting small businesses and Etsy creators nowadays. So if you wanted to turn things into like digital downloads for people, there's definitely an audience for that. There's like digital downloads for printables that you could sell on Etsy, and that requires almost little to no startup costs. Like you don't need to print anything out, you don't need to ship anything. So you could build a community that way, and then maybe when you're ready to start selling physical products, you can then transition into that. So I would really start out with, especially if you have a smaller audience, start out with things that cost you very little. So again, printables, maybe like wallpaper designs with cute quotes or drawings, printables again, yeah, Patreon. You know, there's a lot of different avenues that this can be done. Ashley asks, what are your favorite brands of markers and pens to use? So I am a self-proclaimed stationery obsessed human. I have a very shameful amount of pens and markers, so I can confidently say I've tried quite a lot. In terms of pens, my go-to are these, the ones that I used for the black, which these are called the Sakura Pigma Micron, and they're just a very basic kind of fine liner. They come in different thicknesses, so it's really good for stuff like this if you want a bold line or if you want to do faux calligraphy like this. I use them all the time in my videos. If you watched any of my videos, you guys probably have seen it. So there's a thinner thickness one here, and they're really good. They last quite a long time. In terms of markers for coloring, I actually have quite a lot of them here. If you like kind of pastel colors, I like these ones. It's a little bit bright. Oops. These are zebra mod liners. They come in kind of like nice color palette. I also, again, as I mentioned earlier, the Crayola Super Tips are a really, really affordable option for anyone who's just starting out with stationery, because they're like, I think $10 for a pack of 50 or something like that, and they have all the colors you could ever want. And you can actually do faux calligraphy with those as well. Let me see if I have any here. But yeah, they're very versatile. Lena and asks, sorry if I butchered your name, can you suggest calligraphy pens for beginner and which large brushes for intermediates? Yes, so for calligraphy, if you're first starting out, I think the like best pen to have is this one. This is the Tombow Funosuke hard tip. The reason why I love this for beginners is because it's a plastic tip, so it's a little bit a bit more stiff, so you actually get quite a lot of control, and it'll only get thicker when you kind of tell it to and press hard like this. So you can see you have quite a bit of control there. And I like the smaller size. It makes it easier for you to write in a notebook or in, a journal. So, because the larger size is a little bit harder to control, but this makes it super easy, as you can see, to do. And when I was first starting out with calligraphy, this was like my favorite thing, and I found it the easiest to do. So this is the Tombow Funosuke hard tipped brush pen. It's a Japanese brand. In terms of the brush size ones that are a little bit harder to control, so this is the Zig brushables. Actually, these are newer, that I haven't tried these as much on my channel, but I've been really liking them because they have a double end, so you kind of get bang for your buck here. So you have two colors. There's one lighter and then one darker. And I know markers and stationery can get a little pricey, so it's kind of nice that you have the two. The reason why larger brush pens are harder for beginners is because typically there are softer tips, so you do have to have a little bit more discipline in your pressure on your wrist and how you're writing. So in order to get that control, but it's definitely possible for beginners as well. You just have to, I would just really recommend doing these wavy exercises. I love doing them and suggesting them for beginners because it really helps you with the angle that you need to hold your brush pen at. You shouldn't be holding it like this. You shouldn't be holding it too horizontal. It's kind of like a nice 45-degree angle. And then once you get the hang of it, you can then transition into actual letters. And again, because these brush tips are they're looser than the one that I talked about previously, it does take a little bit of practice, but once you have it, you can kind of go with it. So these are the Zig brushables, Zig memory system brushables. It's really nice because you have the double, so if you wanted to do like an ombre, you could definitely do that as well. Use both of the colors, and it's kind of like a faded moment here. Amanda asks, I love you, Amanda. You're awesome. Thank you. Can you talk about your journey to becoming the expert that you are today? I don't know if I would call myself an expert. Thank you so much for saying that. But as I mentioned, I have been on the internet making videos for 9 years. In terms of like calligraphy and art, I've been doing that on my channel for 5 years now. So just in total, that's a lot of time. And I think there's a quote, it's like, if you do something 1,000 times, you'll become an expert. I forgot the exact number of times, but I really do think it is that, because if you guys go to the very first videos when I started bullet journaling and lettering and all of that, you'll see that I was definitely not as quick, not as efficient with it, definitely not as good, because I was just starting out. And I think especially with like this quick internet culture, a lot of people feel like you need to be good at something immediately or good at something naturally, and I don't think that's the case. I think we can all become the level that we want to be at, as long as you put in the work. So what I did in order to get better at journaling and lettering and drawing is just slowly integrate it into my everyday life. Bullet journaling was a really great way to do that because it was a planner. And I could doodle along with it, practice my lettering, and not in an overwhelming way where I'm like, okay, Amanda, you need to sit down and do 2 hours of lettering every single day. It's really like an approachable way where you can just be like, okay, every day, if I just take 10 minutes, letter do a couple like calligraphy, alphabet letter exercises, do some of these wavy lines, then slowly but surely, I think you'll get better. And even just consuming the content that you aspire to be, I think that's always a good thing to do. So if you like a certain style of lettering, trying to see how an artist does that and integrating that into your own style. It's not necessarily stealing, but it's kind of like inspiration. I like to call it stealing like an artist, where you're not like copying it exactly, you're just integrating elements that you like from a specific style into yours. Jillian, can you show us how to do another phrase? Maybe my name. Yes, Jillian, I got you. Definitely, if you guys have specific, I know I've been writing the word learn a lot, but I know for a fact that there are specific letters that are a little bit difficult. So if you have words that you've been struggling with, if you have, your name. So Jillian, I'll go back to my regular pen just in case you don't have a brush pen. But, so what I'm going to do is use the brush pen, and then I'll show you how to kind of mimic it if you don't have a brush pen. So Jillian, I will do your name here. Your name is actually very fun to do. I love when there's a lot of like L's, because there's a lot of options here. So I think this is kind of like a basic option. Another thing that I like to do, I guess I'll do it above here. So this is why I mentioned that you can kind of play around with different styles of individual alphabet letters. So with L's, something that I think is fun to do is to do a loop. So you can do like that, add a little loop to make it a little bit fancier. Okay, so this kind of gives us a nice base. If I wanted to do that with my regular pen here, I would start out with just regular cursive. And what helps is that if you're spacing out the letters, because I know I'm going to be adding the thicker downstrokes in after, so making my letters maybe wider than what I would normally do for cursive is also helpful. So we have Jillian, very basic cursive, almost like the cursive that you would learn in elementary school. Do people still teach cursive in school anymore these days? I have no clue. But again, retracing those strokes, and wherever my pen goes down, I'm just adding a double stroke to that and filling it in. And you'll see it ends up looking pretty similar to what we have here. So, Jillian, there you go. But yeah, it's very fun to play around with the types of letters too, because there's so many options. Like, for example, with the word the, just the word the, of course, you know, you can do like, you know, just a regular the. But something that I like to do sometimes is getting a little fancy. So if you use the H to cross over the T, and you know, there's just so many variations with lettering that add to it. So once you kind of get down to the basics, you can start playing around with stuff like this, where the letters connect more, and it gives it more of a calligraphic feel. Hey Amanda, I'm super excited for this. How did you find the confidence to start a business surrounding your passion? Also, how do you balance your passion and business, as in how do you stay motivated to draw under pressure? Wacky Web, this is a very, very great question, and it's something that I've actually been struggling with over the past couple of years. So I guess I'll start with how did you find the confidence to start a business surrounding your passion? It was very natural, I think. I definitely didn't go into YouTube in general being like, oh my gosh, I want to make money from this. Things were definitely a bit different when I started back in 2013. And even when I started integrating, art on my channel, it was very it was very natural, where I think people wanted to see. There was a lot of people who were asking questions like, what products do you use? How do I draw this? I don't like drawing. I don't have the time to draw, but I love, you know, being creative. So the first product that I had thought of was a planner that integrated my drawings as a coloring book. And that way people could still have the creative outlet, which is coloring, but maybe if they don't have the confidence to start drawing their own illustrations quite yet, you know, it's already kind of done for them. So that was the initial jumping off point, was just my ideation for that planner, and then it kind of grew into more. Now we have notebooks and washi tapes, and I'm working on a couple other products as well. And the second question is, how do you balance your passion and business and stay motivated to draw under pressure? This is definitely a very hard one. Anyone who does anything creative for a job, I think, will be able to relate to this. It's kind of this double-edged sword, where you're so passionate about your hobby, and you're hustling to like make it your career, and then once it is your career, you're like, oh well, now my relationship to this thing that was once something that I loved to do for fun is different, because I have to do it under pressure. I have deadlines, I have people watching me. It's, you know, you have to balance what you do for yourself and also what you do for your customers or your audience. It's something that I still struggle with today, and I think what has helped me is just making sure that I still do things only for myself, and that I don't need to show anyone. So personally, I have found other creative outlets like music, or, you know, drawing for fun, but not necessarily showing the internet at all. So I think having that balance is definitely very, very important, but also, like our quote says, learning when to rest. And I think if any of you are just starting out with a small business, or in the creative fields, or maybe starting your own social media channels like YouTube or TikTok or whatnot, something that I always like to tell people who are starting out is just learn to take rests. I know it can be very, very tempting to just go all in, hustle really hard. And I definitely did that for the first couple of years, but I burnt out quite quickly, and it's really not sustainable. And yeah, you have to know when to balance. That was a long rant. Hopefully you gained something from that. Rosa asked, I'm so slow in calligraphy, and because of that, the ink bleeds through the paper. Do you have any advice for making my calligraphy handwriting faster? Rosa, I definitely know what you mean. Obviously, I'm just using printer paper right now, so as you can see, we do have a little bit of bleed. I would maybe try to invest in some thicker paper. That's actually a really important thing. Instead of like investing in buying a ton of different pens, like I mentioned, you can do quite a lot with a few pens, like just a few basic pens. So paper is actually a really good investment. A really solid notebook with, you know, a thick paper that can withstand a lot of ink will be really helpful to you, because I do think it is important to start slow. If you do want to, if you do want to go quicker, I would just keep doing those like alphabet exercises. Like I can just do, literal individual alphabet letters by themselves pretty quickly. So that way you have kind of like your roster of letters in your mind, and it's like muscle memory when you're going to write a word. But paper is actually really important, and I feel like not as many people talk about it when they're talking about supplies for art. KPPS, you recommend any apps for digital hand lettering to sell printables? I personally don't sell printables, but I know a lot of people like Procreate. I have a Wacom tablet on my PC, and I use Paintool Sci, which is a nice, pretty good program. I've heard Krita is good. If you have Photoshop and you work with like Adobe Creative Suite, Photoshop, you can download a bunch of brushes online that are like calligraphy brushes, and there's so many. Christina.Val asked, I love your new bangs. Thank you. They're definitely a little bit hard to maintain, but I appreciate it. I find Z and X the absolute hardest to get right. Yes, Z and X, very hard. I will admit, sometimes I don't get to use a Z or an X very often, but when I do, it's kind of exciting for me. I'll show you guys how I personally do a Z. So what's a word that has a Z? I guess zebra. So Z, you can do this, which is like the classic cursive. I feel like that's like the Z that you learned in the alphabet. Sometimes, and I think this is what I mean by like you guys should try to find your style and experiment quite a lot, because I don't think you need to follow the exact cursive rules all the time. A lot of times I will disconnect some of the letters. So for example, in like the example of Jillian, there are times when I would just like maybe go like that. And as you can see, they're broken up. So with a Z, you could also just do kind of like a loose Z like that, and then continue on. And it looks a little bit like looser. It's not as, perfect cursive, but you definitely still have like a loose handwriting aspect to it. So if you don't want that like perfect, cursive, you can kind of change it out. But yeah, Z's are very fun. X's, I guess, what's a word with X? Xylophone. I want to do one where there's something before the extra. So for X, I go like that. So you have, you go down, and then you can continue with your letters, and then you can kind of go back in and cross it. So that's how I would do an X. If you also just want to do, like I mentioned, the other way where you kind of like stop and start, there's all different types of ways. Again, I would just do your individual alphabets. When I first started with the alphabets, I would do like a specific letter multiple times and try to find different ways that I could do it. So for example, like a B, I would do a B like that, I would do a B like that. I would kind of see how many times or how many different ways my brain could do a specific letter, and that way I can see all my options, see what I like, and choose it. And then when I'm going into writing like an actual word, it's kind of easier. Tell Jay asked, do you have another hidden talent, like maybe being able to break dance? Can you show us? Please tell me you can break dance. Unfortunately, I cannot break dance. I think something that people don't see a lot on my channel is my love for music. I talk about it a lot, but maybe I don't show it as much. I don't know how hidden it is though, because I do sometimes show it. I really do enjoy singing though. I take vocal lessons, which has been a really fun creative outlet for me, and something that I, don't need to commodify and turn into something that the audience on the internet sees. I can also play 3 instruments. I play guitar, I play piano, play ukulele. In middle school and high school, I played like trumpet and violin, but I kind of forgot all of those. So yes, I guess those are hidden, but not so hidden. I do wish I could break dance though. Kevin asks, how do you manage your time on camera with off camera? You mentioned working on art but not sharing it. Is that important, do you think? I think that's important. Even without art, I think in life, work-life balance is so, so, so important. Even to any of you who aren't doing like something creative, if you have a job where you're working in an office, it's obviously you get to like sign off and have your own personal time. So especially in these times when we're doing everything like working from home, everything's online, just really being able to find time to do something for yourself, which is why I like doing stuff like this, where it's like you can kind of shut off the world and focus on just, one thing. You can't be on your phone at the same time. You can't be on your email at the same time. You can literally only focus on this. So I think definitely being able to carve out time for yourself is really, really important, whether you're a creator, whether you're, you have a different type of job. I think it is so important. And anyone who has reached burnout in work, I think once you have reached that like breaking point of burnout, you can all relate and understand, and you kind of realize how important that is, because up until then you're like, oh, I could like work for ages. I love like hard work, hard work never pays off. Okay, so I think we're kind of coming to the end here. If there's a couple more questions, I can fit in a couple more, maybe some of your most burning ones. And this session was really, really fun. I initially thought we were gonna do, maybe a little bit more learning, but I think these questions are pretty good questions, guys. Risa asks, what thickness of pens and pencils do you use? And what are your favorite white pens to use over darker colors? My favorite thickness for pens for lettering stuff like this, I really like the one that I use, which is the graphic one. It's quite thick, so you get kind of like a bold look to it. But for my like illustrations and lettering and bullet journaling and stuff, I like to use either a 0.2 millimeters or a 0.3. They're a lot thinner, as you can see. So that's like for maybe more finer detailed stuff. And my favorite white pens to use over darker colors, these are Archer and Olive acrylograph pens. They're actually like paint markers. And if you like to, if you have white paper or dark paper and you want to like write with white over it, they're pretty good. I need to shake it up beforehand so I can show you, but as you can see, it shows up quite well. You can also use, these are Sakura Jelly Roll 10s. These are gel pens, and you can pretty much color over dark colors. Jonathan asks, if you could only use one medium for the rest of your life, what would it be? Easily just pens. Like ink is my go-to, and I've loved using ink even before I started doing like illustrations on my YouTube channel. I went to an art program in high school where we did a lot of art projects every single day, and one of my favorite things to do was just sketch with pens. I'm kind of infamous for not sketching with a pencil on my channel before I do things. I'll like roughly sketch things out, like I mentioned here when I did this, I like roughly wrote it out. But I don't spend like an hour doing a base sketch and then, kind of outlining it. I am such a lazy person, and I really like things to be quick. So I just don't like to waste my time sketching when I know I'll redraw it over. So what I love about ink is that it kind of forces you to draw efficiently and effectively and be really sure about the strokes that you're putting down. And it also teaches you to fix your mistakes or be happy with your mistakes. If you mess something up, there's always a way to fix something or kind of adjust it so that it looks slightly better. I like to call it creative problem solving, which I think a lot of art is. Manur says, I literally learned all the calligraphy that I know from you. All the love from Pakistan. Thank you so much. Sending love back. If you are, I know this was a very quick session, but I do have quite a lot of tutorials about calligraphy on my channel for beginners. So if you are interested in stuff like this more, you can just go to AmandaRachLee on YouTube. And calligraphy, I definitely go more into depth, but this was kind of like a crash course, and I wanted to answer any personal questions that you guys have. Cloudy Feather asks, I'm your biggest fan. Thank you. I want to do these artsy projects and spend more time on my bujo, but I'm very busy with school. Any tips for handling these two at the same time? So this is going to be the last question, unfortunately, but this is probably the most important one because it's the one that I do get a lot, is how do I manage my time with creative things as well as work? And first off, I will say, if you're forcing yourself to do something that is not making you happy, obviously, don't feel the need to add this. This is just what I like as a creative outlet. But if you are wanting to spend more time, I think there's definitely ways where you can interject little bits of artsy things, creativity in your daily life, whether it's just in your planner, like I mentioned, doodling a little bit, or just taking 20 minutes at the end of your day to doodle something. I think you can definitely make time for it. And sorry, what was any tips for handling these two at the same time? That was the question. So I sometimes rant and I lose track of the main question. Yeah, I would try to integrate the two, and that way you're kind of killing two birds with one stone. If you're wanting to write notes for a certain project that you're doing, you can use the lettering for the titles, and that way you are integrating something creative into something that is not so creative, and also kind of adding into those practice hours. But yeah, you can also, like I mentioned earlier, I think spending at least 20 minutes to yourself, whether it is something like this, like lettering or drawing or anything else, those 20 minutes every day can add up. All right, guys, so I think that's going to be it for today. I hope you enjoyed this. Again, apologies for the technical difficulties at the beginning, but I really enjoyed answering your questions, teaching you guys. I hope you learned something. If you are new to me and my content, my channels are right down below there. As you can see, AmandaRachLee on everything. It's on YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, all of the things. And thank you to VidCon now for having me. I know there's going to be so many other fun live sessions, so you should definitely join some of the future ones as well. But other than that, I hope you guys have a lovely day, and try to doodle something on your notebook or your planner today. For me, do it for me. All right, guys, have a good one. Thank you guys for hanging out with me. Bye.